bless you, and I would like to welcome you to this another edition of God Bless America Again, emanating from the International Church, Westside International Church, located at 1862 4 Acre Road, right here in the beautiful city of Jacksonville, Florida. It is my privilege and delight to come to your home this Saturday night. I missed you last couple of weeks, but God's been doing some great things at the local church, and you're in store for a treat today. So don't turn that television off and put that remote control down. God has something special with you in mind today. We're blessed to have our church historian with us again, Sister Deborah Wilson, and she's going to talk to us today about a misinterpretation of the First Amendment. You're going to want to hear this. This is going to be some good stuff for you tonight. And special music will be coming to you from our very own, one of our church babies, Sister Deborah Brown. And she's got a song that's going to be entitled How God Will Carry You Through the Storm. And culminating and bringing the whole program to its climactic point will be none other than our shepherd, Bishop R. Dale Kitchens, speaking to you from his heart. What can we do? What are we going to do with this Jesus? I'm telling you, my brothers and sisters, this will be your 30 minutes to make a life-changing decision. And take it from me, welcome to God Bless America Again.
Good evening, and welcome to the history of God in America. In our last segment, we talked about the intent of our founding fathers with regard to the First Amendment. We discovered that the original intent of the founding fathers was not to prohibit or restrict religion, but to provide religious freedom for the American people. Tonight we will continue our discussion by talking about the devastating impact that followed the court's decision to redefine the intent of the First Amendment. In 1962, when the Supreme Court case redefined church to mean any religious activity that was performed in public, it closed the door on prayer in school and led the way to the 1963 decision to remove the reading of God's Word and religious instruction from the classroom as well. For the first time in American history, the courts made a decision without any historical or legal precedent. In other words, there were no previous rulings for them to base their decision upon. It's also important to note at this time that they polled the American people, and only 3% of the population stated that they had no religious belief in God. 97% of the population stated that they believed in God, and yet, once again, for the first time in our history, the courts ruled in favor of the minority. The first case against the posting of the Ten Commandments in schools took place in 1980 in a case with Stone versus Graham. And the decision of the courts read as follows: if the posted copies of the Ten Commandments are to have any effect at all, it will be to induce the school children to read, meditate upon, and perhaps to venerate and obey the commandments, which is not a permissible objective. Now let's take a look at the impact that this has had on American life in 4 separate areas: our students, our families, our education, and lastly, our nation. With regard to students, pregnancies for unwed girls between the ages of 15 to 19 had remained relatively steady at 15 per 1,000 from 1951 to 1963. The pregnancy rate among unwed mothers has risen 553% since 1963. With regard to sexually transmitted diseases, that had also remained relatively steady at 400 per 100,000 from 1953 to 63. Student STDs have now risen 226% since 63. Premarital sexual activity among teens had also remained relatively steady at roughly 12% from 1955 to 63. Premarital sex has risen 271%. What about the impact that this has had on our families? From 1948 to 63, the divorce rate had been steadily declining in America, and averaged only 2%. Since that time, our divorce rate has risen 117%. Over 50% of American marriages now in divorce. This is the highest rate in the world. Single-parent households have risen 140%, and unmarried couples living together has risen 536%. Students now score 80 points less than their parents did on the SAT score, and this is the same test that they took in 1963. This is the first generation of students who academically know less than their parents did upon graduation. In 1962, there were approximately 1,000 private Christian schools in the United States. By 1984, that number had risen to over 32,000 private Christian schools. What about the impact that this decision had on our nation? Violent crimes had remained steady at 200,000 per year prior to 1963. Since that time, violent crimes have risen 794%, and again, America now leads the world in violent crime. We're also number one in the world in voluntary abortions, illegal drug use, and in the Western world in illiteracy. Parents, if you have school-age children, I implore you to do whatever is possible to make sure that they have a private Christian education, or at the very least to be homeschooled. These students hold the key to the future of our nation. And we've often heard the saying that politics and religion don't mix. In our next segment, we will show the fallacy of that statement by examining the requirements of politicians from our past, as well as the belief in a national as well as individual accountability. So until we meet again, may God bless you and God bless America.